Does size matter when it comes to watches? Now, people always talk about size when it comes to watches, you won't catch me wearing a 36 millimeter, or you won't catch me wearing a big watch like a 45 millimeter. And to me, I just think that a thing can be ridiculous. It really depends on the size of your wrist, personally. But mostly I'm talking about people that refuse to wear a smaller watch. I just don't agree with that assessment because look here, 36 on my left hand here, 36, and we got 45 on my right hand here. So maybe it's because of me or the camera, but I actually don't see that much of a difference really. And yeah, there is a difference, definitely. The camera will compact the view so you don't notice it as much. But there's not that much of a difference when you wear a watch. And I know a lot of people say, especially people with larger wrists or even just insecure men. And well, it can be insecure people in general, but I noticed that this is more specifically a men issue, that people will refuse to wear a watch that's 36 millimeters. And I just think that's ridiculous, Like, I'll give you a wrist shot real quick. My wrist is 7 3/4 inches, left one, right one is 8 1/4 inch. Check it out. See, it doesn't really look that small in my opinion. Now you got to remember it's the camera angle, so the camera might seem the watch looks smaller or bigger than it is. But this is just like a wrist shot right here, and that's 36 on a 7 3/4 inch wrist. Now I'll show you what it looks like when I wear a watch that's 45 millimeters. This is my Seiko Turtle SRPH 55. Here we go. Let's tuck in the strap. And here's what it looks like on a 7 3/4 inch wrist. Now, the lug to lug on this watch is around 47.8, and the other one is 36 millimeters, and the lug to lug is 43.5. So, yeah, this is just an example of like how a wrist size can look. Now, when I look in the mirror, another thing is too, wrist shots are not like an accurate view of how a watch will look. Like, it can either look big or small depending on like the type of wrist you got. Usually when you have your wrist out like this, like the way it's extended, a wrist shot is going to look like the watch is smaller. But when you look in the mirror, it's going to look, or the watch is bigger, my bad. But when you look in the mirror, the watch is going to look smaller. Wrist shots are definitely a more accurate way to tell a watch's size. Because when you have your wrist out like this, the watch is just going to end up looking bigger. But yeah, 7 3/4 inch wrist, almost 8 on a 45 millimeter watch. And as you saw like a minute ago, or just a little bit more than a minute ago, you saw me wear a 36 millimeter. So the size actually matter. I think it does, but at the same time, I think people greatly exaggerate that a watch needs to be big if you have a large wrist. I mean, just look at my wrist, I have like close to an 8 inch wrist, technically 8 1/4 on my right. I just even it out by saying 8 inch wrist on both of them, since there's a 1/4 inch difference on the half-inch difference on the left one, and half-inch difference on the right one. So I just even them out and say 8 inches on both of them. But there's really no need for a watch to say, oh, I'm not gonna wear this kind of watch, it looks too small on me. Like, I'm one of those people where I personally think that a watch will just rarely ever look small. Like, it just doesn't really look that small as you think it does. And I promise you, no one has ever said, it's almost nobody's ever said, that guy's watch looks too small on him, he should get a bigger watch. Like, that's a very, you need to wear a watch that looks very small on you for that to look small. Like, it's almost never gonna happen. I mean, just, it just doesn't make sense. I actually think it's worse when you have a watch that's like too big on your wrist, because then it looks like you're wearing like it's kind of like when you're wearing your dad's oversized clothes. You guys like ever seen like those movies or whatever when you see like a child that's like 5 or 6 years old? It's just like a little boy wearing his dad's clothes, and it just looks like super drapey and everything. Like, it just looks off, it doesn't look right. So I actually think it's a lot worse when you have a watch that's just too big, like a watch that's too big for you, and it just looks off. But when you have a watch, all right, a watch that's like a decent size, 36 millimeters, even if you have a large wrist like I do, 8 inch wrist pretty much, it doesn't look bad. It still looks good, and it can even give off like a feeling of elegance. I know some people will like a watch that has like a rugged, like tool look, kind of like a masculine look, but at the same time, it just doesn't really matter that much. I mean, this watch is great, You don't really need a watch that's big and oversized, especially if you don't have the wrist to pull it off. And I guess what at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say too is wear a watch. Don't be afraid to wear a watch that's smaller than what you think. I have no issue wearing a 36 millimeters with a wrist size as large as mine, and I am kind of like off-put it when I hear people that have like a 7-inch wrist and they just like refuse to wear like a 38. Like, do people not even realize that the Daytona is actually like a 38 millimeter watch? It's like 38 millimeters and a half. It's not actually 40 millimeters. But yet people will rave about the Daytona. Like, I think one of the reasons why people actually like the Daytona so much is because the watch is only 38 millimeters and a half, but Rolex uses it scheming. And what I mean by scheming is they lie and actually don't put the proportions and the dimensions. The real Daytona is 38 millimeters and a half. My Oyster Perpetual in green, which I showed in a video before, is actually only 39 millimeters and a half in diameter. It's not 41. So yeah, believe it or not, your favorite watch is probably actually most likely going to be 40 millimeters or 39, maybe even 38 and a half. So that's why I'm saying you shouldn't really be one of those people that's like closed-minded. You know, you should be more open-minded to wearing watches that are smaller. Small watches look great on any kind of wrist, really. They're rarely ever going to look too small on you. And as you saw when I put it on my wrist, it didn't really look that small on me. It looked great, right? And big watches, they can have their space in the collection too. They can have their space in the collection too. And you can just wear a big watch sometimes if you want like a rugged, everyday type of watch. Like I have no problem detailing my Seiko SRP H55. It's a great watch. I love the case shape. I love the dial. That's one of the main reasons why I got it. And it feels nice when I wear it. There's places for big watches and small watches in people's collection. But I'm just saying more people should be open to wearing smaller watches. You're really going to be limiting yourself to like wearable icons. Like imagine if you had a 36 millimeter Datejust and you refused to wear it because it looks too small, or a 36 millimeter like Day-Date. You know, look at Tony Soprano from the Soprano show, and that guy was wearing a 36 millimeter Day-Date and it looked great on him. You know, if you look back in the day, people are not going to say 36 millimeters is too small, especially back then. 36 millimeters actually used to be a classic size and a men's size watch. So at the end of the day, I'm just saying, be more open-minded when it comes to watch sizes. Size does matter, but don't be completely closed-minded. Be open to trying out new sizes, new watches, and at the end of the day, just have fun. The main point of the watch hobby is to have fun. Anyways, that's it for this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one.